We're back in the house where the temperature is a nice 73 degrees. We're going to do this sewing project today. I have my Sailrite sewing machine out. I have a roll of Sunbrella white material. The whole idea would be to make a cover that attaches to the glass portion of the hatch, maybe with bungees around the edge or a drawstring, and then if you're on the inside and you want to open the hatch, you can just open it without taking the covers off. That way we can just leave them on during the heat of the day, and if we want to see out, you can take them off. But we'll take a look at those options later. The first step will be to measure the hatches to find out what we have to work with, the radius on the corners. Then we'll cut out some fabric and start trying to design something. So now we will head over to the sail loft, which just happens to be the living room. And I've laid out some of the Sunbrella white material. And then we've measured the hatch as 27.5 inches square. Outside the frame, 27.5 inches all the way around. And there's going to be a radius in the corners. It'll be like a round, there'll be a round radius in the corners, but I haven't quite measured that yet. But what we want to do, since it's a 27.5 inch square, I'm going to add 1 inch, which gives me a 1/2 inch seam allowance all the way around. Pick one edge of the fabric, which I know is straight, the factory edge. I measured 28.5 inches up and put a mark, 28.5 inches up and put a mark, drew a straight line, and then I picked a square to make sure I squared off the fabric, and I didn't want to use this raw edge here, so I drew a line at the square, and then I measured 28.5 inches up to that side and 28.5 inches up there, drew a line, and that will give me a perfect square. Now typically I would cut this with a hot knife, but in this case the hot knife will give a crunchy edge and it might make the seam more difficult to make the radius. So I'm just going to cut it with scissors, and I'll try to cut both pieces at the same time. We will just cut these pieces of Sunbrella. And there we have 2 exact square pieces. Okay, we have our 28.5 inch square pieces of fabric. We have 2 of these already cut out. Now what we need to do is put the radius in the corner, and I've measured on the hatch that it's a 4 inch radius for the corners. So 4 inch radius means an 8 inch diameter. So I found a plate that just happens to be slightly over 8 inches. And since we're doing for the seam allowance, the extra 1/2 inch here will work out well. So we'll just place this plate in the corners, just like that. I'm going to mark each one of them. Every corner is going to be exactly the same. And now we'll just cut off all of these corners that we just drew. It doesn't have to be super critical, because fabric is pretty forgiving when you sew the edges. But the nicer you make it the first time around, the better the end result's going to be. So we'll do our best to follow our little lines. Okay, now we have both pieces of fabric with the nice radius in the corner. Now we will go to the sewing machine. As we sew this, we're going to be looking for about an 1/8 inch or a 1/4 inch hem. I don't know if you can see it, but we're just going to fold over the edge. And luckily the machine has a foot that's about a 1/4 inch wide, so it makes it pretty easy to follow that hem. So let's put this down here. And for the first time, we're just going to do a straight stitch. Put the needle in the center. We're just going to do a nice straight stitch all the way around. We'll go a couple. done the 1/4 inch hem all the way around the edge. So you can see the corners have a little bit of a pucker to them, but once you get on the outside, it's going to look nice and neat. So now what we're going to do is fold this over one more time to get another 1/4 inch, and it'll help stiffen up the edges. It might help round out the corners, we'll see. But in any event, that's what we're going to do. So reset the sewing machine. I don't want to start on a corner, I want to start on a straight line. I think it just gives me a better way of doing it. And I'm only using a straight stitch. I'm not using any zigzag or anything like that. This umbrella fabric seems to like straight stitching. And now we have one custom-sized sunshade. There's more to be done, but this is the basic sunshade at this point. Okay, we're back out at the boat here. I have my 28.5 inch square that's been folded and seamed down to 27.5 inches. I tried a couple different methods for attaching the cover to the window. The old method used snaps here in the corners, which meant that with the covers on you couldn't open the window. So what I've done on this one is I've attached little tabs that stick out about 1.5 inches all the way around, and then I'm running this line in there, and what that does is clamp onto the edge of the window, but it doesn't clamp on far enough to get into the seal of the window. So let me see if I can get this set up for you, see if we can see this. So the way it works, just put it over the window, lock a couple of the corners in, stretch the other corners on it. It's nice. Now the corners just go around the corner of the window, and if you look underneath, it doesn't wrap in far enough to get into the seal of the window. Is that with the cover on, we can close the window. It'll stay nice and secure. Go inside and take a look. Now from the inside, just the umbrella fabric over the window. You can still open the window if you wish to do any ventilation in the. You can still open the window, close the window, the cover stays on. And that's it. All I have to do is go inside and clean up the sail loft, and tomorrow we'll see if there's any temperature improvement in the cabin. But I'm pretty sure already it's going to be better.